All right, we are live. Well, everybody, welcome to World at War Comics. My co-host, Mr. Juan Reads Comics, and myself. Today, we got Riley Rossmo, Daniel Warren Johnson, and tonight we're going to be talking about The Moon is Following Us. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Big fans of both of your work, and I cannot wait to dig into this. It feels like it's going to be another emotional roller coaster, which I'm all in for. I have loved the first 4 issues so far. It's been amazing. The art is incredible. The story is awesome. So I feel like we could just dig in if you're okay with that. But welcome.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks for having us. It's super
Thanks for
exciting.
having us.
Riley's camera's still not on, which is fine.
All good, Riley. All good, man.
You can just send over a sketch of yourself and just put it on there.
He's got that. He's got that middle of nowhere Canadian internet.
Yeah. I know. So I'd love to ask this question for both of you, if that's okay, man. As far as art and storytelling, when did you each get the bug for that? And was there someone in your life, whether a family member or a teacher, that really inspired you in storytelling and art?
Oh, Riley, you have to go first. Uh-oh. Riley is dead silent. Something probably happened. So I'll go first while he figures his crap out.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
Oh, this is totally par for the course, by the way. Riley not being able to talk on a call. Maybe something that I was really. I'm trying to think of a. Oh my God! You're in and out. You're bouncing in and out. Now you're
Well,
sideways.
fix the camera. Hey, we got a camera.
Nice.
There you go.
I think he just wanted to prove you wrong, Daniel, the whole time. He was like, "I'm going to fix this, man."
Look, we both have our problems. I'm over here doing dishes instead of being on your podcast. Riley's got gum in his mouth. Okay, you're trying to tell me about Fort Wayne, and I clang washing dishes. For the viewers that are watching live right now, yes, I was doing dishes at the start of this video before we went live. So, because look, we all have responsibilities. Anyway,
Absolutely.
influences and inspirations and people in my life that made me want to make stories. For me, there was not. Are you drawing a page right now, Riley? I love it. I love it. Yes,
I'm just
make
thinking.
art. Yeah, he's thinking out loud. Show us
Yeah,
what's
I love
going
it.
on. This is a video podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, show us what you're drawing, Riley.
Yeah. I'm just drawing this guy I'm thinking about.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Riley is a visual, obviously,
It's
a very visual guy.
Things to come.
Yes, love it.
That's also
Well-
what I do when I just
Yeah.
keep my hands busy.
Yeah.
I remember when my mom and dad were always trying to get me to stop picking my nose when I was like 8 years old because I would just do it all the time. And they bought me one of those tech decks to flip around that I could do it was a real problem. Anyway, back to the question that you actually asked us. There was not necessarily a person that was in comics or anything that I had connection to when I was growing up, but I had an artist that taught my local art class for kids. Her name was Rosetta. She's from Italy, very thick Italian accent, very short. This tiny little lady that had a lot of spunk, and this was it was like paper mache class, basic stuff. And I was very young. I was maybe just about to go into middle school or a little younger, and she pulled me aside. She pulled me and my parents aside, and she's like, "You have to get this kid out of this like paper mache crap and get him into figure drawing class." And my parents were like, "Whoa, really? Oh my gosh, we gotta like." And so they put me in adult figure drawing when I was like in sixth grade, fifth or sixth grade. So it's like a bunch of high schoolers and a bunch of adults, and it's fair to say I was better than all of them, and they were not. They were like, "What? Who the heck is this guy? This little, rando kid who can draw really well." And I hated it. I'd cry before every class because I didn't want to go hang out with these lame adults and high schoolers, and the high schoolers would just like make fun of me all the time.
Yeah.
So, and also I was not very social. Like I didn't have social skills growing up. I was homeschooled, and I didn't have it. I didn't have that special sauce, that helps you lubricate through your younger years. I didn't have that. So I drew a lot in my house and watched Transformers, and it's really paid off.
Yeah, I think it's done
Yes,
well.
it has.
Now it's your turn to embarrass yourself, Riley. Go ahead.
All right, Riley. Any
I was
inspiration from
super
someone?
cool at figure drawing classes.
Did you have
That's-
figure
I
drawing
didn't-
classes when you were little?
Yeah, I didn't know that about you. That so I had a wait. What was the question about what our inspirations were?
Yeah,
People
like
in your
what-
life.
Yeah, people in your
People
life that
who-
inspired
yeah.
you to tell stories, art.
Well, some of it is just because I don't know what else to do with myself. Like my mom has been, as I get older, my mom's getting older. She gives me stuff that she kept when I was a kid, and every report card says, "Oh, he's a nice kid, pretty bright. If he'd apply himself and not draw all the time, he'd do really good at school." And it was just like again and again and again and again. And in high school, I wasn't homeschooled, and I didn't have that wonderful, supportive, loving parental. My parents are lovely. I'm just saying that. But Daniel's dad, I met him, and he's very nice. And shout out to Daniel's dad. I can imagine him being very encouraging and figuring it out. But I was like a little bit wild and stuff, and I was just failing everything pretty much, or just scraping by. And my grade 10 art teacher, Mrs. Gradish, she was my neighbor for a while. And she was kind of a cat lady, and she was really sweet. She would take me to the university to do life drawing. And I wasn't like, I didn't do well in her class. I was just showing up, and I was like drawing anarchy signs and stuff, and Venom, and drawing Venom, tracing Frank Miller stuff, and they'd be like,
Anarchy
"Hey,
signs and Venom.
they'd be like, hey, let's we're doing landscape drawings this class." And I'd be like, "No, I'm doing a cityscape," but I wouldn't like learn how to do it, so I'd just hack it out. Anyways, Mrs. Gradish, she said, "Well, do you want to go to the university to life drawing?" And I was like, "Well, like college kids and stuff?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right, college kids." And she took me, and it was awesome. And then I continued doing badly at school. And then my grade 12 teacher, graphic arts teacher, Mrs. Kalapaka, was super, super encouraging. And she's like, "I know you may or may not pass my class," but she's like, "Just keep making things." And
And you
That's
did.
awesome.
I did. And then I did.
That's so cool that your coming of age story also involves figure drawing.
Yeah.
And like a mentor figure.
Oh, and when I walked in there, I was just like totally like overwhelmed. There's just all these like cool grown up kids on the college campus, and
Did you fit in with them when you went into the class though? Did you like fit in with them?
Well, no, they were all like 4 or 5 years older than me.
Yeah, but were you able to chill?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I remember specifically there were a bunch of high school girls that would call me penis head every time I'd walk into the class.
Oh.
I didn't do anything to deserve. I didn't do anything to deserve that one. They could read it. They could read it on me. But I was also the kid in Little League that like I was the worst one at baseball, and then the kids found out that I liked Transformers, and then as soon as I get to practice, they'd be like, "Yo, Optimus Prime sucks," and I was like, "How could you say that?" Like, really,
I mean,
like,
to be fair, we won't say exactly what I've trolled Daniel with, but sometimes I show Daniel Transformer drawings that he does not agree with, and
yeah, like really offensive Transformers fan art.
Still
Just
get
trigger me.
a little bothered about it.
we have that kind of
One day we got to
relationship,
see
though,
those, Riley.
and I, you know, yeah, we're able to rip each other pretty good. It's the best, and
I love it, man. That's the kind of collaboration and collaborators you want to be with, man. People that you can get along with like that, I think.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, I know, Daniel, I've seen your AEW hat a few times at different places. I know you have some things that you enjoy outside of comics. Riley, what do you like? How do you escape, or do you not? You just love it that much that you don't need those kind of escapes, or do you need like a break once in a while from comics? And what is your break?
it's a great question, Riley.
I mean, I love comics. Like I love all kinds of comics. I like literary comics. I like manga. I like old comics. I like horror comics. I love it. I just really, really love it. I do. But
You're probably one of the most informed comics person I know, like in my whole life.
well, thank you. I'm not very good at like, oh, in Spider-Man 172 this happened.
No.
But I could guess who maybe drew it. I could probably guess who drew it.
When Riley came to visit me in Chicago in April, we went to a comic book shop here that had like, you know, a bunch of dollar bin stuff, and the selection was quite good. And Riley's like flipping through, and he's like rifling through, and he's like, "This one's really cool. This one's really cool." And he's like, "Have you checked out this guy?" And I was like, "Who the heck is this?" It's some random, I don't know, Witchblade thing or whatever. He's like, "Oh, this guy's great." Puts it aside. "Hey, did you check this out?" I was like, "No, I don't know any of these people." Like, he took me to school that day. It was very nice.
Well, the big treasure of that was Michael Golden. That was the next day. Is Michael Golden, Doctor Strange. I don't know what issue that is. 50 some. Do you guys know that
55.
one? Yeah, that's like a Grail comic that's worth nothing, but one of the best comics just ever drawn.
True.
Just that all.
And a standalone story.
Yeah, yeah.
But you haven't actually answered the question, O'Reilly.
I read a lot. Like I like literature and just different prose stuff. I've been on a real big Elmore Leonard kick.
You play Fortnite?
We do play Fortnite.
No
Nice.
build, not legit, but oh well.
The one mechanic that's like unique to it, we don't do.
I
can't handle this building forts when I'm getting shot at. That's too much.
I found out the hard way when like my friend's kid, who's 12, 10 or 12, or one in that, he found out that I did no build, and he was trashing me about it. And I was like, dude, I just became an adult when all the older people were making fun of me, and now I'm an adult, and all the younger people are now making fun of me. So I can't get a freaking
Daniel, what the hell's going on?
I know, dude. I'm like, hey, guy, come on, no build. I don't want you building some, you know, B-ass building in front of me while I'm trying to shoot your head off, you know? And he's like, that's the whole point of the game.
Well, hopefully no one's called you a penis head. That's a little across the line, Daniel, I think.
No, you know what? To his credit, he did not call me a penis head, so
I'm glad to hear that, man. That was a little over the top, I think, man. That's ridiculous.
Hey, Riley, I got a question for you. Since I've been reading the Moon is Following Us, and while I was reading it, anytime that I hear the name Duncan, it always reminds me of one of the books that you illustrated for was Cowboy Ninja Viking.
Oh yeah.
Did Duncan find his way through there because you love the name so much, or was it something that you guys just dealt with, like just said, okay, let's just use Duncan, or did you say, hey, let's use Duncan from? Yeah, it was just a name that you love.
No,
Okay.
I like that though. I like that there's a multiverse, a Duncan multiverse.
Yes.
No, that's just a Daniel pick.
Oh,
but now I think that could be canon. There's a multiverse.
Yeah, like do a Duncan multiverse, Cowboy Ninja Viking in The Moon is Following Us.
And yeah, I picked Duncan because there's like no good reason for me to pick Duncan. You know, sometimes I have great names, you know, and sometimes you just gotta roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I mean,
about the other character?
yeah, every
Sorry, go
time
ahead.
that I hear that name, I always think of Cowboy Ninja Viking because I was like that's how I got introduced to your art was through Cowboy Ninja Viking. I'm like, this is awesome. I love this work. And then anytime I hear it, I always think of Cowboy Ninja Viking. But I wanted to ask you that question because it was in the book, and I'm like, let's ask him, see if he just made his way into this book. But yeah.
No, I like it.
So can you
What
talk
about
about how you came up with the world is following us? How long have you been kind of working on this title and putting the story together? From the time that you thought of it till now, how long has that been? Where now we're on issue 4, about to get to issue 5.
Oh man.
it's
Oh my
hard to tell
gosh.
the timeline. The timeline kind of like blurs.
Hmm.
Well, it was. Let's see. I'm trying to. I think it was. I was writing it. I think I wrote issue 1 before I started drawing Transformers issue 1, which would mean that I wrote it like at the end of 2023, or maybe like the first. No, that can't be right.
You know,
It'd have to be at the beginning of 2023, right? Just because of the amount of issues from Transformers.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my gosh.
I think
15.
I think I started drawing it in January of 2023 because I think I finished Sandman at the end of 2022.
You've been drawing this book for 2 years? This is
No,
embarrassing.
so
We don't know this.
okay, January.
It's January 2025
It's
now.
1 year.
Oh,
2023,
then
2 years.
2024.
2 years. 2 years, 2023, 2024, 2025, right?
I don't know.
Oh my god. Hold on. Now I have to figure out. Hold on. Let me look up. My screen may go weird because I'm looking at
Yeah,
my
you're
Google
good, Daniel.
Docs.
You're good.
But we started picking away at it. Like we just started going back and forth on designs to start.
Mhm.
Like Daniel kind of like was like, so this is kind of what I'm thinking, and then like I took a pass at all the characters, and then some of it we kept and some of it fell away, and then but we were doing other stuff at the same time, so there was like I think I was drawing Sandman, but every time I had a little bit of extra time, I just whatever popped into my head, I'd just draw it and then send it to him. And the way from my perspective anyways, that we've been doing it is sometimes, especially at the beginning, just an idea will pop into my head and I send it to Daniel, and then he looks at the design, and then if it's cool, sort of like finds a story reason to keep it going. Like it sort of feeds the story, and the story gets richer and bigger. Does that sound right, Daniel?
Yeah. So I just looked it up. I wrote issue 1 from May 23 to June of 23. So it took me about a month, and we were going back and forth, and I had an outline earlier in the year. That's what I was thinking of, early 23. Where I kind of had like a general kind of idea of where I wanted the story to go. And then I would tell Riley, like you said, like about these kind of big moments and these big kind of set pieces that I had in mind. And I would either sketch them out, which I didn't sketch that much stuff, but I mostly would just talk to Riley about these big moments in the story that I was really excited about, and I had to tell somebody. So he kind of would take that and kind of run with it. And then I would as I would be writing scripts and like doing outline stuff, like big stuff, like tentpole pieces in the story that I knew had to be in the story, I would tell Riley about them, and he would do some designs to kind of help visualize that moment, which might require a location, or a lot of times was character based. I think I came up with the look for Brio, right? Like I drew Brio first, and you kind of found a way to make him yours, right?
He made his head more. I don't know. It was more like representational, or more
My
like
head was more like a
more. It was
frog.
like dummy. Yeah.
And your head is more like a baseball with two
It's
other
just more like
baseballs for eyes.
a tennis ball. Yeah.
Tennis ball, yeah.
That's how you draw.
Um,
You take a tennis ball, cut a hole, and like cut it across the middle, and then put 2 little ping pong balls on it. That's the design.
He's kind of the
So-
Rambo in the story, though. I think he's got to be a fan favorite.
Oh no, yeah, he's my
people
favorite.
love him.
So
People love him.
talking about Brio real quick. When I'm reading Brio, the first time when we see Brio on the page, after I read it, I immediately was like, if there would be any person or if this would ever be like an animation, I would get Ving Rhames to voice Brio. He just sounds
yeah.
like the Ving Rhames would be Brio, right? Just the things that we got to go. I think Ving Rhames, from the eye patch to just to the things that he says out loud, just like Ving Rhames would be awesome because he's so tiny but with a big voice, because he just does some cool stuff throughout the whole book. So Ving Rhames, it is for me. So just I just let me know if you need me to voice, get some other people for you for voice actors. This comes at animation.
I'm really happy. Like, Riley is hands down a better designer than me. Like, he's just really, really good at it. So there have been like 2 or 3 characters that I've drawn first that I kind of lobbed to Riley, and he kind of made them fit within the kind of visual language of Moon. And Brio was one of those where he was in my sketchbook first, and then Riley kind of like it went through like the Riley filter, and what you have at the end is what you see on the pages of Moon, which is really cool. And
there's 2 characters. Well, Brio's like that, and then there's a character that shows up in issue 6 that's like 100% Daniel Warren Johnson. It's not it's not something that it's not from me at all. Like, I feel like it's the one character is like, that's the Daniel guy here. That's
it. In issue 6, someone's going to do a German suplex, and that's how I'll know it's Daniel's, right?
That's right.
Are we going to get a suplex in these issues at all, Daniel?
I think you just drew one. Didn't you just draw a
There's
suplex?
Maybe in 7 or 8, there's one.
I think it's 8. It's
Heard it here first. Heard it first.
Yeah.
Suplex coming. And the Moon is following it.
That's like a Daniel thing that when it's in the script, I'm like, oh my god, like what? Come on. But it's like in Transformers, it's like Optimus Prime is doing like a power bomb on Devastator. And I'm like, what is that even? Like, what is like? And
I know.
I resist, and then I figure it out.
I like writing in the script like, hey Jorge, you don't have to draw this, but if you do want to draw this, it'd be really cool if maybe we could do like a pile driver, like, and what did Jorge call it? He called it aggressive crotch hugging. It was like totally something a non-wrestling fan would say. Yeah.
Speaking about design for a little bit, I definitely noticed when you go from Daniel Warren Johnson's art to you, Daniel, and over to Riley as well. I can definitely tell when the moods change, and I can definitely tell some within the design as well that there's a lot of Riley, especially in like the dream sequences, but then there's a splash of Daniel in there as well. Was that something that you guys both decided, like, hey, since we're on this together, since you're both artists, did you decide like, let's put a little bit of us in there at the same time? Or was it just something that just creatively just happened sporadically?
Well, there's definitely some parts of the story where, it goes back and forth on the page, like panel by panel. There's, I think, one instance of my art literally on top of Riley's art, like in issue 2, where they're going through the portal. So the humans in that one, except for the last section where Duncan is throwing up when they like make the transition from the real world to the dream world. Those 2 characters are Riley's, but them floating through the portals is my art. like that, like
Mhm.
I literally took pieces of paper and glued it onto Riley's art. And so there's that, and then there is a little bit of my visual language in some specific spots. Like sometimes I have things in my head, like the way that a story unfolds or a composition that I will relay in the script and have Riley
But
kind of do, yeah, like
like
yeah,
that, or like
yeah,
That's so
that's
cool,
more
man.
like a map, like that
yeah.
section.
But it's really cool to see that in a script. That was that there's like, oh shit. Sometimes there's a specific. Oh my gosh. A specific. I don't even know how to use a phone.
Is this a mesh of both of y'all together, or is this
That
because
is all Riley.
this
Is
is
it?
beautiful. This
Yeah,
is
I agree.
beautiful.
That's
I agree.
incredible, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
2-page spread.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I knew like some of it. I looked at him as like, yeah, this is definitely Riley. But then some of it I was like, man, maybe the cars are a little Daniel. But when I opened this up, man, I was like, that is beautiful. So
Thank
man,
you.
Riley,
Thank you so much.
awesome work, man. Thank you.
I think it's in that issue. There's a page when they're breaking Penny out of a jail, out of like this weird prison thing. Is that in issue 2 or 3 or 4?
This was
It's in
4.
issue 3. That what you're talking about is in issue 3.
There's this, yeah, and there's a, what, I can't remember what that thing's called.
A praxinoscope.
Yeah. So her prison is a praxinoscope, and I was like, it's cool. But there's the page when they're looking down on her, and Daniel drew inside the, he drew inside. He drew like panels inside the thing. That's super cool. That's like a super, super as cool.
And yeah, that one's pretty subtle too. Like, you know, I feel like a lot of people might miss that one.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
No,
And
it's
it's
awesome.
and it's cool. I mean, it's just, I think, cool to both of us that it's on like actual pages, like that the actual art boards like have both our art on it, which is, I mean, like I think Kent Williams and John J. Muth maybe did that. I mean, oftentimes you have artists switching back and forth, and you do it digitally or page by page. But it's cool. I don't know. It's exciting. It's exciting when it's just on the actual board.
Yeah, I don't think that happens that often, right? In art, I know there's artists that go back and forth. Sometimes you'll have half the issue done by one artist, and for whatever reason, they had to have another artist come in to finish, or issue to issue, like with Conan the Barbarian, we get Brian on some, Del Toro on others, which is great because we get all that different flavor. But I don't know of one where within the same page, different panels are being done by different artists. That's pretty unique, I think, and not done very often, right?
Well, especially.
Hasn't been. I don't think it's really been done. I'm sure I'm wrong. Like Riley was saying, like sometimes, you know, back in the day, or like you were saying, Tommy, like sometimes just because out of necessity and deadlines, it's like, come on over and help me ink this last panel.
Yeah.
But as an actual like intentional story reason to have differing artists changing, I don't know of a. I don't know of a. I don't know of a comic that does it.
I think the only one I know is that Havoc Wolverine Meltdown. That John and Kent Williams, I think, but I've never read. I don't know if they've done interviews about it. Just that's what I surmised by looking at it.
Oh, speaking about Wolverine, I like how you threw that. Have you read any X-Men comics before?
Yeah.
And then yeet.
Uncanny X-Men 100, baby. Yes.
Yeet.
That's some good times.
It's a bucket list, right? Check. Good.
Yes.
Good
and speaking of collaboration, Riley was having the hardest time with the panel before he gets thrown, right?
Yeah.
Riley, we talk like almost every day. Riley, we talk almost every day, and sometimes Riley will just FaceTime me out of the blue at like 9:30 a.m. You know, he's usually like, you can only see like his head like this. He's like, I can't figure this out. And like, you know, it's like a normal artist thing that we all do. We all struggle with specific story beats or getting something right. Yeah.
Where you say it right there, and
There,
then right
and then
the actual
yeah,
throw
next
of
page.
Leo.
So
Yeah.
the bottom page on the left,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the bottom panel. So that
And
is
that's like
my drawing that basically that he did over.
it's just like traced over basically. That's such like a Daniel Warren Johnson. There's these Daniel Warren Johnson like moments in it that even in the script, like I'll be reading the script and Daniel just does some action pacing and stuff so good. And I'm like, well, I just have to think how Daniel would draw this. That's it. That's the only solution is like, how would Daniel draw this? Like whatever it is. And then some of the like that one, man, I don't know how you like. I would never draw that front leg like that.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, but it's so correct. Like it's just whatever.
Yeah,
can only-
sometimes
like, we can
sometimes
do-
we'll be playing Fortnite, and we'll be like
Yeah.
no build, and then Riley will just say randomly, "How does your brain work?"
I don't know if that's a compliment or
I feel it's quite flattering, But,
yeah. Okay, good.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's why
Yes.
it fits together so good, right? There's we're playing off each other's strengths.
It's
and-
true. It's true. And I think we have said this in interviews before, and it was on my YouTube, but like Riley just came up with this concept of the traveler. Sorry, I call him the traveler. That's what he used to be in the script, Pigface. He was called the traveler in the first iteration of the script, and then Riley drew him, and Riley just called me one day. He's like, "Hey, do you trust me?" It was the first issue, so we were kind of like, things were going smoothly, but we were figuring out like how to like make everything click and like we were figuring out the process, and he just called me one day, FaceTime me at 9:30 a.m. He's like, "Hey, do you trust me?" And I was like, yes. And we got that. He sent me a picture of that image of like Pigface that he just came up with. He's like, I wanted to draw this guy a lot. And I was like floored. I was flabbergasted. Yeah. That's a good feeling.
Yeah, the
For
first
sure.
time you like see Pigface or when he opens up like his wings and he's like the man trying to sell you everything on the side on the street, and he has all
I was
the
actually
different
looking for
weapons and
watches,
stuff.
Juan, just for out of curiosity, if there's watches in there or something.
There was watches and knives and guns and everything in there. It's like, yes, I love this. This is gonna be my next favorite character.
It's a straight rip from Resident Evil 4. What are you buying?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's what that is. Yeah, 100%.
Oh.
I love that game.
That is awesome.
Yeah, one of my favorites
Nice.
of all time.
I love it, man. That is so cool.
Nice.
From a parent standpoint, I have 4 kids. They're all adults now, but I have grandkids now. I feel like this story really touches on like a parent's biggest fear also. I know, Daniel, you said you had a couple kids. Riley, I don't know your situation, but like being able to bring that kind of an emotion into a comic, obviously was on purpose, I would think, right? You wanted to bring some of that emotion. There's a lot of action, a lot of incredible storylines, but that emotional side of it really kind of tugs at my heart too. As a father, seeing your daughter in a situation where you have to kind of put your trust in a lot of people that you have no idea who they are, but they have an expertise need. That fear alone, outside of seeing your child in that situation, is just gut wrenching. Can you kind of talk about how important that is to this story? And was that the goal at the very beginning of this story?
Well, I mean, if goal wise, for me at least, I don't usually, when I'm making something, I've told Riley this a bunch, but a lot of times when I'm like outlining something or figuring out the first parts of the story, I'm trying to figure out if the story is like even worth telling. So a goal, what ends up happening is like the goal is I'm going to finish this story when I decide it's worth telling. And then even after that, after I kind of figure it out, it takes me a little bit to really distill what I'm trying to say down exactly right, exactly like to the letter. And I like to be able to like have a one sentence explanation or one sentence theme for my books as I'm working on them to help me with my, story compass. But as far as like the kind of like putting your faith in unknown sources, I love grounded stuff. Like I love things that people can kind of get a hold on. And even though it's a crazy, insane situation with flying wizards and dream worlds and pig faces and so on, it's coming from this place of, well, if we do nothing, we won't get our loved one back. It's a forcing on the a forcing of the adventure. I don't remember where I heard it. Oh, I remember my buddy. I think it was my buddy Arnie, who was a dungeon master. I don't really play much Dungeons and Dragons, but we were kind of making our characters, and my buddy Arnie was like kind of coaching us through it. And I had played a few times, but there was a bunch of people that had never played before, so he's kind of explaining making a new character. And he said, "Look, nobody wants to get out of bed in the morning anyway. So why are you going to get out of bed and go fight a friggin' dragon? There has to be a good reason for it. There has to be something. There has to be this huge fire under your butt to get you to go on to do these crazy things." And I really like having that behind my characters, because if it's something that's universal enough, like people will go along with a lot.
Yeah.
That and like, there's a bunch of different stuff. I mean, you can learn a lot as a comic book writer just by watching Face Off. Just the brazen, like, this is what we're doing. And if you don't like it, there's the door. But that's
what I love about Daniel's stuff in general is, like, a couple times. I mean, mostly the first time, like when you're working on Extremity, that's sort of like, as you're working it out, it's like, okay, it's like a world and the stuff is happening, okay. But then when you're like, oh yeah, Murder Falcon, like, what is that even? He's like, yeah, he's this like chicken man with like a falcon, and he's got like army pants on and a robot arm, and then guitar powers him. And I was like,
awesome.
what is that? Yeah, I'm gonna pitch it soon. You think it's a good idea? Is that a good idea to pitch? Yeah, cool. But that's not really what I mean. But there's the heart of it. That's like the
Right.
window dressing, right? There's stuff in there. Same with like do a powerbomb. Oh yeah, it's about wrestling, and then this is a spoiler. So if you haven't read it,
yeah,
they wrestle God. So cool, right? Like, and it's awesome. It all makes sense. It's a great metaphor. It does all this stuff, but when
that's
you
one of
were
the times that made me tear up. I don't get teary-eyed very often reading comic books, but Do a Powerbomb really affected me in a way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that has the family thing and the parent thing, and I think that's like we both have little kids, and part of it, like, that brings us back to it and stuff is we have daughters that are like close to the same age, right?
Yeah.
And when Daniel pitched it, to me, he's like, that image you said, well, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but the parents is it a spoiler?
Yes, it probably is.
Yeah. So, anyways, there's this one who's like, "This is what the whole thing is." Like, that's it.
Yeah. I kind of, and I was breaking it down. Yeah, I was breaking it down.
Like, that's it. That's it. Yep. We have kids.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it is.
How are we gonna get there? I don't know. Like, when I was telling people, "Oh, they're gonna fight God," in my head, I'm like, I don't know how they're gonna fight God, but it's gonna happen.
As Tommy mentioned, not too many times has he, teared up a little bit in a book. And man, yes, Do a Powerbomb did it. Man, this I can already feel that this is probably going to be a gut punch already. But one of the things that I really liked about you and what you guys have been doing, especially over at Image, is at the end where you just like write in and talk about the book. I like when they do that. And then when you have your little insert, I forget what it's called, but then you would like basically talk to everyone. It's on the number one. In Transformers number one, that whole page right there, when you're taking us back to when you were on the bus playing with your Optimus Prime and how it fell down and rolled all the way to the back of the bus and you couldn't find it and you were, oh my gosh, like you transformed me back when I was a kid. When I lost one of my action figures on a bus and literally I teared up. I cried. Shut the book was like, fuck you, Daniel Moore. You got me on my feels, and I had to walk out the room after I just had it.
I got you on the outro.
Yes, you did. The whole thing was amazing. And then right at the end, he's like, God damn you did it to me again. Oh. But yeah.
I love it. Oh, I love it.
Even in the first, even in The Moon is Following Us number one, you did it again, man. I got to the second paragraph. I was like, oh. So yeah, you definitely you have a way with words and you have a way with these emotions. And like I just love the way you put like all your heart into these comic books, man. Because man, I love comics. I love reading them. And it's definitely an escape for me from like just my regular life. And when I start to read books, I get seriously transformed into whatever I'm reading. So when I can connect with a writer like that did such a great job with Transformers, nonetheless, man, it makes me feel like I'm freaking like 7 years old again, playing with my action figures, even though I still got, I do get like six figures a week. I mean, or I make six figures a week. Hold on, I don't know.
Well, if you have 6 figures a week, you definitely don't make 6 figures.
Yeah, right.
That means so much. Thanks for saying that, dude.
No, thank you, man. Like seriously, it's man, what you did with Transformers was freaking awesome. And it's just the same way how I feel with Riley's art. I can just look at Riley's art and just like stare at it for like forever. Like even where's it at? I got it here somewhere. I lost it. Where's my hardcover? Where's my book?
Earlier, we were just talking about it.
I know. Oh, here it is. I love picking this bad boy up and then just looking at the pages and then just everything. I had to get the hardcover because just what you do with like some of the art that you do, man. Like I'm nerding out here right now. I'm so sorry, but like having to talk to you both, it's like, wow. Like, so thank you guys for doing what you do. I really appreciate. It's not the end of the podcast, but I'm just saying I really appreciate it. Now that we're getting our emotions, I mean, because I kind of segued into the emotional part. So then after that, we're done. No more emotions. Back to Steel
We need
Face.
a group hug, man, after all this.
Yeah,
bro.
right.
Yeah, I do think a lot of people love the letters pages at the end too. Oh, go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say thanks again. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just gonna say the letters page, right? There's a few, especially on the indie side with Image. A lot of different titles are starting to do that more often. But as a kid, when you got done reading your comic book, I would, obviously write out a letter and send it in. And I never got chosen, but I always would buy that comic just to see, man, will they take my letter? And I always try to come up with, some kind of a question that might get their attention. And by doing that, I probably made it worse. That's why I was never chosen. But the letters pages were so fun growing up, man, because you would see real fans' reactions to everything that was taking place, and you could see how it affects them. And in a story like The Moon is Following Us, because there's so much emotion involved, I love looking at the letters page just because it affects everybody in such different ways. I do think if you're a parent, it hits you in one way, but even not being a parent, man, I think everyone can relate to having someone they care about and then something happening to them and not having the power to do anything on their own and having to rely on others. And I just think that's life, man. And when you're able to put that into a story and remind everybody that that's very normal experiences to go through, and we all go through them, it doesn't stop me from getting emotional, but I think it's really cool that you could relate. And I think the best stories in comics are ones that you can relate to and that you see a little bit of yourself in. And The Moon is Following is definitely is that for me for sure.
Heck yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
That's really awesome.
so my understanding is this 10 issues. The arc is 10 issues. It's going to end at the end of that.
So we're doing like 2 mini arcs. It's like 5 and 5. So
Okay.
there'll be 2 trades, and I just signed off on the design of issue of the trade 1, which is super cool. So we got that, and then gosh, so it'll be 2 trades, and it will be over. So
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that both of you probably get asked a lot, especially on a title like this that hits a lot of emotion. Why don't we get more? And I do think self-contained stories where there's a beginning, middle, and an end, and then it ends, have the most impact. Even though we want more and more, a lot of times you kind of fall off because the story's already been told. So I love it and I hate it at the same time because you want more, but I do love that it's self-contained and that you're getting everything at once, and you could feel the way you feel about that, and I think that's okay.
Yeah. Go
I
ahead,
feel
Riley.
like the stuff that has like a definite end usually, not always, but like oftentimes really like gets you. Like why The Last Man? The first time I read it, I had feelings. I had big feelings at like a few points, especially towards the end. Like that, that doesn't happen the same way. Not that I don't love Amazing Spider-Man, but it's not final, And I like that about superhero comics. Like Bucky came back. Bucky's cool, but you know, Why the Last Man, when it's over, and that's it. That's it. And you can come back to it, but it's over. Same with Preacher, right? Preacher the same way.
Yeah. And like to Riley's point, the things that have moved me the most in comics and have made me want to make comics the most are the things that do have a period, and like without Bone, I don't think I'd be making comics. I was reading that when it was like coming out. I mean, I was buying singles when it was like halfway done, maybe.
Really?
So I wasn't on it at the beginning, but I collected the trade paperbacks to catch me up, and there was so clearly an end point, and everything kind of was like heading towards this big moment. And when it did end, it just felt so right. So, I'm trying to the things that have moved me the most, the things that have a period, and the things that can kind of travel into my rearview mirror, and I can kind of reflect back on as I kind of progress forward in my own life, and kind of have those things be a part of who I am as a person instead of them constantly evolving and changing, and I always kind of have to like keep up with it, which is just, there's nothing wrong with it. I think there's different stories that work well for that medium. I guess being able to, it's like a really good record, you like sit down with it, you listen to it, you ingest it, and it will evolve with you over time as you become a different person. So that's kind of the goal when I am making stories. And I do have trouble, even like, to be totally honest, like I have trouble with like when writing Transformers for this long. It's like, okay, how do I keep it going and not like lose this momentum? Whereas like, there is a different art to it, like the ebbs and flows of a comic that's supposed to go for as long as it possibly can go. It does feel a little unnatural. It's something that I'm trying to get better at, but then also like I think I can only get so good at it because I kind of like I want to throw the shackles off and just like, here's the end. So I think, I would love to come up with a concept and a story that like behooves, like a Walking Dead thing where like it's supposed to keep going, and that's like one of the whole points. But my brain doesn't work that way, so maybe I'll change. But I would
keep
love
it that
to
way.
have something. I would love to have something like Hellboy that is just kind of there, and it's just kind of like it's told. And I don't know how Mike does this, but the way that he kind of picked at it for so many years, it just kind of felt very natural. So, and I like that, then there's this whole universe, like the BPRD universe. I was so into in college, like when Guy Davis was drawing that. That's some of my favorite comics ever.
Yeah.
Like the war on frogs, or the Frog War.
War of Frogs.
Oh,
And that
so
was
good.
like, that was a big epic though, but it still had like an end. Like there's
Yeah,
still like
it did.
it was going somewhere, even though I don't
Yeah.
know. It's better, yeah.
So, but that's a long-winded answer. Sorry.
No, it's amazing. A lot of people in the chat were talking about Bone. Bone has had a huge impact on a lot of people. And if you look at graphic novels, really that was like the first title to really kind of penetrate school. So I remember, when I was in school, I don't remember it, but I know, like, for my oldest kids, you would go to like the Scholastic store that would come to the elementary a couple times a year, and Bone was always there. They had I can't remember the gentleman's name and his wife, but they had such an amazing idea of targeting and working with Scholastic, and boy, have they had the impact on so many creators later on. It's incredible. I think it was Crazy Kurt. I just rewatched this. Did you guys check out the documentary that was done on YouTube about Bone?
No.
Oh,
You should check it out. It is so cool. It really goes in the background and kind of explains the struggles of the comic when it first came out, and then how they broke through. And now, if I'm not mistaken, it's the highest grossing trade comic book in history because of what they were able to do with Scholastic.
Well,
it's incredible.
And now it's just
That's so awesome.
Just the norm. Like I should throw this out to all you guys, is that with my daughter, like the Scholastic thing, for example, is just the norm. Like comics are just part of their world. And Bone, for example, I was talking about it with a friend the other day, and my daughter's looking at me, and I was like, "Oh, but you haven't read that." She's like, "Yeah, I have." I'm like, "When?" She's like, "I think we have some." I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." Like, I didn't buy them for you. Where did they come from? She's like, they're just like around, right? And like Raina Telgemeier, like all those, there's a bunch of creators that came, that because of Scholastic are so big right now. I love that, because when I was a kid, you could get French comics because I went to French immersion school. So in the library, there was Tintin, Asterix, and Lucky Luke, and Mouse. That's it. And 3 of those were in French. Those were the authors. Wow. So I read Mouse when I was really young, because like I was like, it's a comic and it's at the library, so I guess.
It wasn't in French, but Tintin was like the first comic that was not like serialized newspaper strips at my local library.
Oh wow!
And that was huge for me. Huge. Yeah, I don't think I'd be here without Tintin either. So
yeah, I don't know if that's like if it was a Canada thing or what, but they French and English, that was like the one comic that the library had before comics were just around all the time.
Yeah. So talking about like your child Riley having comics and whatever, what are some comics or creators or books that kind of influenced you and what you're doing now? Like, I know we kind of touched on that at the beginning, but since we're kind of in that field right now, what are some of the books or titles or artists or writers that kind of paved the way for you?
I mean, there's just like so many and so many eras of it. Like when I was really small, the first comic I read was I don't know who wrote it, maybe Roy Thomas. A Herb Trimpe G.I. Joe, and it's sort of like Kirby-ish, I guess. And I read those G.I. Joes. Like I can tell you what happens in that series as it goes along with the different characters doing stuff. Like that was like my thing.
Yeah.
And so like that, like Ross Andrews Spider-Man, Frank Miller Wolverine, John Byrne X-Men. That's like my sort of foundational stuff. Like if I look through my sketchbooks from when I was a little kid, there's like lots of really bad drawings of there's Frank Miller Wolverine covers where like one eye's too low and stuff. But the ones he's just that
Yeah.
miniseries was something else. And then after that, it's just the Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson. But I don't know, like I like Todd McFarlane a lot. I liked him on the Amazing Spider-Man. But the Spider-Man of that era, the '90s era Spider-Man that stuck with me is Larson.
Yeah.
I really like Larson. I don't know
Same.
why, but
Yeah.
Same.
I think I got a little bit scared. Like it freaked me out a little bit how raw those self-titled Spider-Mans were. The Todd McFarlane ones with like the Wendigo and stuff. Like this is not like what is happening to Spider-Man now. There's people getting like torn up and there's blood everywhere and stuff. Ooh.
Yeah, Spider-Man went through some things.
But then I think about it as like, oh well, I was reading Craven's Last Hunt, and like that's as crazy as it gets. Or same
Yeah.
with Born Again too. I read Born Again when I was, very young. I'm like, I don't know. I guess all this stuff, nuke, whatever.
Pretty heavy stuff.
Pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy. Yeah.
For sure. Well, in the last couple minutes, Daniel, did you have any comics that had a huge impact on you? I know you talked about Saturday morning cartoons with Transformers. Was there any titles that really had an impact on you, like Riley?
When I was very young, I remember when I think I was a freshman in college. A freshman in high school, maybe a little bit older. I had dabbled in comic books, and I had read like a lot of the Transformers Marvel comics. Because my mom and dad were, very protective, and they wanted me to only really read like old comics that kind of like Riley was talking about, the intensity of the '90s comics when I was growing up. Riley's a little older than me. Was like my parents were like, no way, can't. They don't want me to go near it. But I remember I was just entering high school, and this kid who actually was not very nice to me, loved to draw. His name was also Daniel. He had like really expensive clothes from Hot Topic. The really baggy ones, that were like, were they Jinkos or whatever? Yeah. And he showed me Battle Chasers issue 8. Because he was like on line paper, straight ripping these drawings.
Oh,
I was like, whoa, this looks really cool. He's like, dude, Joe Mad, he's the best. And he pulled out like a copy of issue 8 with the bloody gloves of Battle Chasers, and my brain exploded. And I don't remember if I was really into Joe Mad before then. I know I had seen Chris Bachalo stuff a bunch in that kind of X-Men era in the '90s, which I really loved. So there's a million different artists at this point in my life that I can credit, but Joe Mad was a huge. I mean, how many people are going to say Joe Mad? It's nothing new, but specifically Battle Chasers. Like I lived in Massachusetts before the internet, and my dad had just gotten a computer that could get on dial-up. And I went to joemadfan.com. It's like one of the first places I went. And like he did a cover for Electronic Gaming Monthly with like Ryu, I think, or some video game character. No, it was Final Fantasy VII. Or I was so jazzed on it. My dad had just bought like our first family computer and a printer that went with it. And it started gargantuan, and I found out that I could print stuff, and so I like printed that Electronic Gaming Monthly cover, and it took like 3 hours to print the whole thing, and it used up every single ink, all of the ink from the printer. My dad
like a
got home that
$6,000 print job.
He's like, "What have you done? This print cartridge cost like $100. It was so expensive back then." And I was like, "I was just trying to get Joe Mad in this house, because you couldn't get that stuff." I remember like going around to local comic shops. Like, do you have Battle Chasers? And it's too late. It's too late. It's like this is like '99. Issue 9 had just come out, maybe. And by that time, a lot of the comic shops.
It was so delayed too. So
it was so delayed they didn't even order issue 9. They were like, "Screw this! Why are we gonna deal with this drama?" And I was like, "You guys have Battle Chasers?" Like, do not even start with Battle Chasers with us, So I was literally calling all over Massachusetts, every comic book store I could find, every hobby shop. "Do you have Battle Chasers? Do you have Battle Chasers?" Finally, I found a place that was like an hour and a half away, and I found like an old an old like furniture shop nearby that I knew my parents would want to hit up. And so I got them to drive me out there because there was this like old school furniture shop,
You're like,
and I had them
antique
shop.
store, Dad. Antique store.
Yeah, I had them shop at that antique store while I snuck away to the comic shop, and I managed to buy them before my dad knew what was inside them. Yes!
And then he saw Red Monica and was like, oh, Daniel. Oh, Daniel.
No, remember there was a backup in issue 9?
The Adam Warren one?
The Adam Warren one, where they're kind of sexily fighting with their swords, you know? And my dad was like, they're mixing sex and violence?
Yeah.
Double whammy, bro.
Not okay. He's like, I'm really
Not
disappointed. I'm disappointed that you bought this. I was like, okay. It was like my first step into manhood. I was like 14, and I was like, I'm gonna buy this anyway.
That's like a thing for Daniel. That's the same with your Deadpool too. I love the Deadpool story with your dad.
Yeah.
Dad, pool. A pool of death, Daniel.
Of death. And do you guys remember when George W. Bush walked onto the aircraft carrier in the flight suit? Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you remember what year that was?
2000 and
It's 2001, right? Is
1 or 2, right? Somewhere in the early 2000s.
When did he become president?
I'm a Canadian. I can't help you here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a reason I'm asking, because I know that like
it'd be 2000 or 99, right?
I always had this positive association with George W. Bush because he was
2001 to 2009. Yeah.
Okay. So like it was very early on. I had come home with a comic that my dad did not want me to buy, and George W. Bush was on TV, and the conversation about my bad comic book buying habits were stopped because he wanted to listen to George W. Bush on like the TV. That's like a huge core memory for me.
Wow. Your ability to continue to read Battle Chasers was because of Bush. The one thing that you enjoy about Bush, probably, right?
He's like talking, like, oh god, this guy, and I'm like sneaking in my bed, like throwing it under the covers.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. Well, gentlemen, I want to be super respectful of your time. We promised an hour, and it's been an hour. I can't tell you how much I love this comic book and how much I appreciate both of you. I know Juan and I and everybody in the chat are huge fans of both of your work. Thank you so much for entrusting us today with your story, and I hope we could do this again sometime.
This is super fun. Thanks for the thoughtful questions and the nice conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It was real fun.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Super dope.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Daniel, please tell Rachel that I honored her email. She'll know what I'm talking about.
Did you see her? She's coming in here. She's
she told me. She told me. Yep, she told me. She goes, I'll come in and remind you, but I want to be very respectful. I know both of you are extremely busy and it's late. So thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you.
Can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And again, hopefully we could do this again. Maybe at the end we could kind of go over the story when all the spoilers are out there. That would be a lot of fun because
that'd be dope.
It has a lot of heart, and I think a lot of people would like to dig into it more.
I agree. Thanks so much, guys. Have a wonderful night. Thank you, chat.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye, Riley.